Yes. I burnt the books of Galen and Avicenna publicly before the students and their professors in Basel on St. John's night. And though it brought forth wide condemnation, I never regretted it.
You are Dean of the Faculty of Medicine here, and you say that my cousin is hated by all parties in this city.
Yes, I believe that to be true.
Well, I have made my own investigations. Setting aside the politics of his appointment, I find your statement to be anything but true. For one, his women patients adore him and trust him.
Oh, really?
They told me that at least with him, they and their daughters were safe.
Yes, I had heard that he was a eunuch.
I, too, am celibate, preferring, by choice, like my cousin, to put the work of our order of knights above animal desire.
I merely repeat what is generally known. There are others he has offended.
Who? You certainly can't mean the student body. There's hardly a student that has not sought a place at his lectures at least once, so that thereafter he could proclaim to the whole world he was once taught by Paracelsus. That is the measure of his fame and popularity amongst the students. At least until you started your policy of discrediting him.
And what of his colleagues? My fellow doctors with whom he must work?
For a score of years, your University Faculty of Medicine has provided the doctors of this city with guidance and encouragement. But because my cousin was appointed city physician by its Protestant alderman, you will have nothing to do with it.
You are not fair. Our faculty takes guidance too. Firstly, from the great physicians of old, from Galen, Avicenna, and Hippocrates, and thereafter from the deans of other faculties, like those of Leipzig, Nuremberg, and Strasbourg. Now, the opinions of these august bodies are absolutely contrary to those of your cousin.
Well, I too don't always agree with my cousin Philip. I was quite opposed to his siding with the peasantry in their recent uprisings, and it nearly cost him his life. But I did understand his motives. He was determined to side with the poor and the suffering then, and he will be no less determined now. He is city physician, and I think you would all be wise to accept that.
City physician, yes, but I will not have his pontificating over what should or should not be taught in our medical schools, and burning Avicenna in front of all those students.
You mean St. John's night? Yes, I did see him there. I was with him earlier, attending to Master Wartburg the potter. Syphilis, you know. And your people were no help. Yes, Theophrastus drinks occasionally, and for a knight of St. John like me, that was the occasion of the year. I confess I had a drink with him. But the students would have got drunk without him, such was the mood of their revelry. Strange he did not drink before Rhodes.
I don't think anyone here doubts the competency of your cousin in the field of surgery, Commander. It is the arrogance of this young man who challenges every maxim and precept of Galen and Avicenna that we physicians find so insufferable.
My cousin's efficiency in the craft of healing should be enough for you. 3 famous men in this city have given him credit for being a physician of the first order, and that is enough for me. I mean, of course, Ecolampadius, Erasmus, and Froben. Are there any among your faculty that could vouchsafe the same?
Good Sir Knight, are you telling me that Paracelsus is quite blameless? That we as a faculty, if not as individuals, are quite wrong? What do you suggest we do?
I suggest that you ask the advice of the wisest man in Europe.
You mean Erasmus?
Who else? And why not?
Master Erasmus, we have called you here today to assist us in a matter of some delicacy. You are no doubt aware of the physician called Paracelsus, who has become, through his appointment as city physician, a professor of medicine at this university. As such, Paracelsus has disappointed this faculty greatly.
He refuses to cooperate with us in any way. He will not lecture in Latin, though he's fluent enough. He invites non-students to his classes. He makes monstrous assertions about his status as a physician, but he does not present his credentials here as he should do.
Indeed. I lived with Paracelsus in Froben's house when he saved my good friend from certain death.
Quite so. His cure of Froben's ailment was remarkable.
Fortuitous for the city. And of course for Paracelsus.
What you probably do not know, gentlemen, is that this famous doctor has recently treated me for several complaints, and with singular success. A success not equaled by any of you who attended me. I see that Paracelsus is able to hold his tongue over professional matters, if not in other areas.
Well, even so. His behavior recently has forced us to take steps to discipline him.
If you have succeeded in that, then you are alone in all Europe.
The aldermen, the same lot that appointed him in the first place, are none too happy with him either. He's upset quite a few of them, too.
Gentlemen, please, let us get on with our business. Good Erasmus. Two matters have arisen which alarm us. Paracelsus has publicly burnt the works of Avicenna and Galen. He threw them onto the St. John's bonfire in front of us. No excuse for it whatever.
Excuses? For Paracelsus' actions? History is littered with them. 300 years ago, the English monk Roger Bacon tried to burn the works of Aristotle. Is it 5 or maybe 6 years since Luther burned the papal bull at the Elster Gate at Wittenberg? Gentlemen, if princes may burn their subjects for the error of their ways, then surely Paracelsus may burn a book or two when they transgress.
But, Master Erasmus, we just don't understand this man. He has the city in an uproar.
Paracelsus is misunderstood, but is that so bad? Pythagoras was misunderstood, and Socrates, and so is Copernicus in Poland, and Luther in Germany, and no doubt there are many other such wise and pure spirits. To be great is to be misunderstood.
The appointment was unwise, Erasmus. It was a political trick.
Yet, strangely, his politics is neutral. He is no Ecolampadius. And Paracelsus is also most tolerant in religious matters. A good Catholic, open, like myself, to humanist principles, and a champion of science.
But he persistently insults this faculty.
Now, that is different. Paracelsus threatens the whole entrenched medical tradition, here and in every university in Europe. You cannot expect me to advise you on such a matter. It is quite outside my province. But I would remind you, gentlemen, that Paracelsus has always treated me with concern and kindness, and professionally with eminent success. He cured my closest friend. I am surprised that you should invite me as his friend to condemn him, or as a layman to offer you advice about a matter which seems to me to come under the heading of medical ethics. I would say that his excellence as a doctor and as city physician would be sufficient testimony to his worthiness.
But Erasmus, Paracelsus is about to hold a lecture for the whole medical fraternity of this city.
Then I suggest you attend. You might all of you even learn something. I should also suggest that you invite him to hold it here, in this university, where it should be. Good day, gentlemen.
My dear Varnica, what shall we do?
I have a plan to put to you.
Well, I must say I'm pleased to hear that. You've been in this mess from the beginning, Varnica. If anyone can solve the matter, you can.
You know that Dr. Hock of Strasbourg is in town?
What of it? He is here on business, I believe.
The devious Dr. Hock has another reason for being here, Dean. He's anxious that Paracelsus should give his lecture.
What? He detests Paracelsus. I have heard him say it.
Exactly. He wishes to shame him in public. and thinks the best way is to call Paracelsus to account at a full meeting of the medical fraternity.
I see. But Paracelsus has chosen the subject of the lecture already. Hock might find it difficult to fault him on a subject of his own choosing.
Hock is an expert anatomist, and every subject has its basis in anatomy. Leave it to him.
You sly dog. So, no matter what Paracelsus says, nor how brilliantly he puts it, Hock will probe its anatomy. I should say, his anatomy.
As a matter of fact, Paracelsus is due to speak on putrefaction, so must mention the duodenum, colon, and so on.
I feel better already. Yes, do. Let's have him to speak at the university.
Hock will stand up and question him on every point. But, Dean, I suggest that you do not attend the lecture yourself. Your presence might give rise to suspicion that you'd contrived the eruption.
I think you're right. My absence can be taken neither as support for Paracelsus nor as opposition to him. The correct procedure, I think. Yes, the correct procedure.
Patient has inflammation of the lower left arm. A circle of inflammation. An infection which seeks in vain an outlet. I have taken shavings of bark from the common elm. I have boiled them together for 5 minutes, and from this decoction I have separated the slimy shavings, and see, I have from them made a poultice.
I have marked it well, master.
Now, Operinus, take this poultice and bind it securely to the carbuncle. By tomorrow morning, it will have drawn the pus off, and the wound will heal quickly. I will see the patient at the same time tomorrow. Now I must speak with Boniface. Oh, and Operinus, take a specimen of his urine and taste it. I vouch you'll find it sweet. Such afflictions are often to be found with sweetness of the urine. Come, Boniface. What's it all about?
Aureolus, there is mischief in the making. Several of the aldermen have been to see me professionally to seek advice. They believe the medical faculty are lining up a candidate to attack you in debate at your public lecture. They are planning to humiliate you.
There's not one of them could stand up to me in a colloquy. Not even Dr. Vonnecker. I could tear him to tatters.
But they have brought somebody else in. They mean to undo you.
Oh? Who have they brought in?
Do you know a Dr. Hock?
Yes, I do. He is professor of anatomy at Strasbourg University. What about him?
He is here in Basel. The aldermen say he has been asked by the Basel medical faculty to humiliate you.
That is probably true.
You know this man? You are unconcerned.
I am unconcerned at the political fight that is raging in this city. I am concerned about the spread of the new medicine. I have already crossed swords with Wendelin Hock on 2 occasions. First, at a dissecting seminar, he picked on me, and again, more recently, when I returned to Strasbourg for my baggage after healing Froben.
What happened?
It was during a disputation between doctors. Dr. Hock challenged me. He opened the debate and talked for an hour and a half on nothing. A lot of nonsense straight out of Galen, based neither on common sense nor experience. I was infuriated, as he well knew I would be. His arguments were a farrago of the same old medicine, poured out over the centuries, all precedent and tradition, neither based on any real foundation.
The old versus the new all over again. How did you deal with it?
Well, finally, the old fart sat down. I turned to the audience and I said, "I will not condescend to answer such rubbish." And I walked out.
The Strasbourg clique say you backed down and will do so again.
I have done Dr. Hock no injury. I bear him no malice. Yet he pursues me with every intent to destroy me.
Well, as long as you know about it. How will you deal with him this time? You can't walk out of your own lecture, and he knows that.
I shall deal with this in my own way.
That's what I'm afraid of.
No, I shall not walk out of this lecture, I promise you.
Perhaps my fears are groundless. Come what may, you always have the backing of Frobin. Still by far the most popular figure in this city.
Yes, but for how long? He is so frail.
He talks of attending the Frankfurt Fair.
He is determined to lead a normal life. I have warned him to rest. Riding all that way to Frankfurt could be fatal.
He is like you. He doesn't take kindly to warnings.
Foreigners, you've tasted the urine?
It's sweet.
Yes. A sweet message of death.
Yes, cousin Theophrastus sometimes has eccentric ideas, but in the end they usually seem to work.
Professor?
I remember on Rhodes when the wine ran out.
More liquor?
Paracelsus treated our water with some secret formula that he had. He got it from the Tartars, I believe. And we never had a single case of water poisoning.
Well, I said we should at least come along and hear what he has to say.
Yes, I'll listen, but there's nothing this whippersnapper can teach us.
Hello, here's Operinus.
That brass dish looks interesting. Some rare specimen herb, I fancy.
Another one of Hohenheim's tricks, I'll be bound. And he's speaking in German, too. That's too much.
Well, I wonder what heresy the Luther of medicine has for us today.
Quiet. Here he comes.
Good heavens, he's wearing a longsword.
Never leaves his side, they say.
He sleeps with it.
God damn it, he's not even dressed as a doctor. Chic.
Damned insult, I call it.
Yes, a deliberate insult.
Cool customer. He's no worries.
Gentlemen, anatomy takes apart what really belongs together. It does not explain function. It does not explain function. I can pull out the bowels of any cadaver. It may interest you to know that they would stretch from this wall to that. But on their own, though I were to hack them into 1,000 pieces, they will not explain the miracle of digestion. But this will. This will explain the mystery of death and putrefaction, and will explain the mystery of life that rises from things that decay.
Sit down, you old goat!
Almost everything we eat becomes a part of us, and we live off it. What we cannot use will tell us something about what we do use, and what we do not use contains the secret of our own life. Behold the miracle. I have here before me the greatest of all medical secrets, the medium by which the life force, the very archeus itself, enters our body, and the same medium by which the forces of death and destruction leave it.
Shit!
If you will not hear the mysteries of putrefactive fermentation, you are unworthy of the name of physician. You inspect vomit and urine and pus. What is wrong with a bit of dung?
Paracelsus, they would never have sat through a lecture with that in front of them.
I didn't expect them to.
You scoundrel. And I thought you were devastated.
If you want to see the disappointed one, look behind me.
Surely you'll not get a student to attend your lectures after this. And certainly you were given no room to lecture on this university campus.
Then I shall lecture outside the campus. And what is more, I shall lecture right through the summer holidays. I'll open my doors to anyone. And we'll see if the students attend.
Oh, Bombastus, what a paradox you are. You are a contradiction of everything I was taught at university.
Come, cousin. This siege is over. The infidels are in flight. I went on lecturing through the storms and the heat of that crazy summer. Yes, I did call Avicenna a dead donkey stuffed with straw. I admit it. And I called Galen a goose, and labeled thus so many other so-called authorities on medicine. When I lectured in German, they said it was because I was ignorant of Latin. When I spoke of my inner knowledge, they called it blasphemy and poppycock. When I spoke plainly and in simple German, they called it the language of the gutter. Boniface was right. I was soon banished from every lecture hall on the campus. But in the end, they had to admit me or face the anger of the students. But now there was the matter of indulgences, the disgraceful sale of pardons that was to set off terrible events for my cousin and me.
Fellow citizens! Fellow Swiss! My friend! I have a matter of great infamy to report to you. There are those within these city gates who believe they can buy their way into heaven. Apparently, God can now be bribed. If I am rich, I can sin to my heart's content. All I have to do is buy an indulgence from the church. And I can steal, I can fornicate, I can rape, I can murder my neighbor, I can do whatever I wish. They tell you they use the money for the dome at St. Peter. Or perhaps it's for another crusade. Or perhaps it's to line their own pockets. I say, God cannot be bribed. These swine use the money for their own devices.
These loans must be repaid. They are due, and by agreement, they are to be paid out of the income you collect from the sale of indulgences. Now, the returns from your area, especially from the canton of Basel, they are disgraceful.
The Protestant leaders badger us the whole time. The sales are not popular with everyone, and even the money collected is often stolen. That Ecolampadius has ruined the church in Basel.
I'm not going to accept that as an excuse. You have a Catholic militia, Your Eminence. Use it!
You act as if you bought the church.
Perhaps you are right. Bought off the emperor, and it wasn't cheap. I want to help Your Eminence. You're having trouble with Ecolampadius. Now, he's the Protestant pastor in Basel. I understand that he also extends his protection to peasant heretics, the Anabaptists in particular, those fanatics near Freiburg.
He goes out in person, along with his soldiers, to rescue them from pillage.
I think that some of the Catholic mercenaries could help us. They're in gangs, you know, hiding in the Vosges mountains. Hordes of them. They've been disbanded recently. Many of them, well, unpaid. And with a little inducement, they might direct their resentment, or, shall we say, their robustness, towards the Anabaptists. Now, that would keep Ecolampadius distracted, and gives you a chance, of course, to sell your indulgences in the marketplace, to bring the Catholic majority out of the hills. They've never really had a chance to take up this magnificent offer of eternal salvation for a few guilders. Just return these plans to the architect. The extension is too small, much too small.
Sir.
I want a wing to house an emperor, not a cart horse.
Yes, sir. Sir, there's a courier coming.
I want galleries to display the art treasures of Europe, not drafty passages that give me gout.
Sir.
And I want gardens that are properly laid out, not a collection of dung heaps and mounds.
Yes, sir.
The emperor's expected here in 2 years' time. Nothing's ready, nothing.
Waldheim, sir. Captain Waldheim. Imperial courier. I have dispatches for you.
You have ridden from Munich?
Through the night, sir.
Do you know what is in these dispatches?
No, sir. But I presume it's news from the Italian front. That always comes through Munich. No doubt Bourbon has reached Orvieto, or perhaps Viterbo. He's an excitable Frenchman. They're all the same. Give them a little wine and they go berserk. You put our German lads under one of them and don't pay them, well, anything can happen.
It has, Captain, it has. Rome fell 3 days ago. Even now, 15,000 Germans, our own imperial forces, are sacking the city.
Oh, Mary, how could you know so soon?
My dear Captain, if the Sultan of Baghdad could keep homing pigeons 300 years ago, and the Egyptians 2,000 years before that, I think the banking house of Fugger can manage it in this enlightened age.
Bourbon must be mad.
Bourbon, Captain, is dead. Died in the attack.
And may the Lord protect His Holiness the Pope from that rabble.
Yes, and my estate's there. The Pope has escaped. He's in the castle of St. Angelo. Captain, go to the house steward and refresh yourself. Then come and see me in the counting house. I shall have dispatches for you.
That I will, sir.
Now, Captain, your dispatches will be ready in a moment. You're to take them only as far as our branch in Basel. From there, our French couriers will rush them to the Emperor. He's in Madrid.
Oh, I'm glad of that, Herr Fugger. I'm really too old for long distances anymore. And Basel's not that far.
Come, come, Captain. I've had you checked out. You're a seasoned campaigner, with quite a reputation for dash and courage, if not always for obeying orders.
Yes, well, I'm anxious to serve, sir, but too much riding catches me in the kidneys.
Waldheim, where do you hail from?
Oh, from Ensisheim, sir, near Rufa.
So, you know that whole area?
Oh, yes, Herr Fugger, like the palm of my hand. Lots of our lads round there, sir, supposed to be demobilized, but they ain't. They roam around looking for their wages. You know, what they can get off the land.
Exactly.
What?
I want you to gather some of them together.
What do you mean, sir?
We are having considerable difficulties in the Basel area, Captain. Protestantism is growing like a cancer there. The church is doing its best to raise funds for St. Peter's. But there are brigands in Basel. Protestant ruffians. They constantly impede our agents' work there. Now, their leader is Ecolampadius. He attacks our staff, and even monks going about their innocent task of selling the indulgences.
Disgusting, sir.
I wouldn't mind so much if Ecolampadius used the money he steals from us purposefully. Like building the city defenses, I could even help with finance. But he gives the money to the poor of the city. It's disgraceful.
What a waste, sir.
I want this man Ecolampadius distracted. He goes out with his men whenever there's trouble in the villages. He aids heretics when they are attacked. You know the area? It's rotten with heresy.
Yes, Herr Fugger. The Anabaptists are the worst. Won't have themselves or their kids baptized. Grow up with horrible ideas in their heads. Mutinous troublemakers.
I want them harassed beyond measure, and it's to go on and on and on until we get some decent financial returns from that area. Ecolampadius must be kept occupied, and by you.
I understand, sir. Them Vosges mountains are full of our men, sir. I'll get 'em together. We'll have some fun, sir. They'll like that, even being paid for it.
I shall be in Basel soon. Keep in touch with my office there. Here, take your money.
See you in Basel then, sir.
We have a hanging party, George. Cut him free. The hanging of the youth's brother was the beginning of a day of horror. Soon I was grateful to have my cousin, an imperial knight and a veteran of Rhodes, with me. Even so, I was alarmed at the degree of organization and the violence that followed. It was not what we expected from disbanded mercenaries. Somebody was behind it.
George! After him!
Our daughter.
Come, my child. Now come. It is too dangerous here. We must leave this place immediately.
Come on, lads. Come on.
This is going to hurt, George. Help me lift his head forward. Now, gently, gently. Okay, steady, George. Steady.
How does it look, Erasmus?
You've been very fortunate. More fortunate than you were at Rhodes. There the arrow perforated the lung. But this time it has missed the lung completely. And thanks to nature, the arrow tip slid past the big blood vessel in the shoulder, though it has splintered a part of the shoulder blade. Still, if you respond to my treatment and nature is kind to you, all will be well.
You must have much faith in nature. Does she really do all the hard work in the healing?
Oh, yes, yes, indeed. I, the doctor, merely assist her. The human body is a chemical system, and when someone is ill or hurt, like you, her alchemy kitchen is in disarray. I, the doctor, then must restore order to it.
That's what you tell your patients. If I was one of your students, I wouldn't be convinced.
The simplest truths are often the hardest to comprehend. I tell my students the truth. But as for the patient, I tell him what he wants to hear. Not that the marriage of mercury and sulfur will clear up his leg ulcers. He doesn't want to hear that. I tell him that the special mud pack with toad's claws and the urine of virgin boys will do the trick. Now, my remedy is to clean your wound out for you. I can remove some of the dead tissues. Then I must use dressings of milk of lime to do the rest. The doctors themselves are sometimes not ready for the exact and subtle truths of the new chemistry which I am unfolding. They want to use buckets, where I only want to use the dropper.
Cousin, I was thinking, you said the patient only wants to hear what he wants from you about his remedy and treatment. You mean that his faith in the remedy is all important, say, more than the remedy itself?
And it's even better if he has faith in his doctor, too. My medicines always work better when my patients have heard of my wondrous healing powers in advance. Their certainty of my being able to heal them is a far more powerful curative than any remedy.
I see. So the patient, if he expects that the best remedy will be horrible to taste, large in measure, and gruesome to behold, then that's exactly what he should be given. while you, the doctor, get on with your true prescription for it.
Just so. Your wound is clean. There is no chance of infection. I'm going to take some iron filings from a powerful lodestone. Mix them in this mortar with clean eggshell. Add a little wine. And you will drink the concoction.
And how will that help?
You have lost blood. This will help you to restore what you've lost and freshen your complexion. It will also help your wound to knit. Much of what I teach is calculated to save the patient from his own doctors and pregnant women from midwives.
Give me an example.
Well, I have often taught that surgeons must treat the dagger which has done the stabbing rather than the stab wound itself.
You can't be serious.
Yes, very serious. It is usually safer, George, to neglect the wound than to have it poisoned by some disgusting balm or salve currently popular among the surgeons in that area. Wounds are safer left to nature. If they're properly cleaned, then they don't need any sort of medicine.
The blade of the sword, not the sword wound. My. By Jove, I think you're right. I don't always agree with your methods, cousin, but I always applaud your motives.
Well, we may smile at such matters today, but 400 or 500 years from now, the new doctors will treat the bloodstain of a patient who may be miles away, and by means unheard of here.
Take it away, Operinus. You feed me on raw steak and fennel, cousin. Why so?
Fennel is an ancient remedy for those whose blood pounds within their vessels, those whose tides of life thud in their temples, and sometimes breaks out of their wounds. Especially when Moon is in Scorpio, or Mars aligns with Jupiter. I will not have that in you. Enlightened men may defeat their stars. Well, there'll be no need to suture here. Already the proud flesh of new growth fills out your wound.
And how will you check it?
I will erode the proud flesh with silver and aquafortis. Very soon now, the wound will close and you will be well again.
Cousin, I've been thinking about the horrible events of that day I was wounded. On the body of one of the villains, I found that coin. I felt then, and I do now, that someone was behind all that terrorism. You see, the coin was minted in Augsburg. Now, who has a license to mint coinage in Augsburg?
Only one banker that I know of, and rich enough to retain an army. Yes, you've guessed it.
The House of Fugger. I wonder if there is a connection. Yes, and that captain, Waldheim, the soldiers called him. He didn't want me, an Imperial Knight, slaughtered. That would be dangerous for Fugger.
Yes. Fugger sits on the Imperial Council, and your death might have been an embarrassment.